And welcome to another exciting episode of The Energy That Surrounds Us. I'm your host, Michael. And before I introduce my guest, I do have a little housekeeping to mention. And that is, we are now a part of the Legit podcast family. So check out those other shows that are on this network. We are so pleased to be a part of this network and blessed to be asked to join. And so check them out and see all the different type of shows, whether it's paranormal, sports, or music, I believe is the other option. So they have something for everyone. So check them out. And with that being said, I am now going to shift gears and bring you all a guest that I found, I believe, on LinkedIn. And we chatted, and I am so grateful that she agreed to be a guest. And yes, she is in Australia. So we are technically time traveling because I'm on Tuesday night. She's Wednesday morning. So if you guys want to know what's happening tomorrow, feel free to ask her in the chat because she knows. But with that being said, I am going to turn it over and allow her to introduce herself. So I give you the one, the amazing, blessed Bobbie the Messenger.
Thanks, Michael. I really appreciate that beautiful intro. Okay, a little bit about myself. I am first up a seer. So that was handed down to me by my mum. My mum had exactly the same gift where she could see into other frequencies, but she shut it down. She didn't like it. It scared her. But my curiosity took me further. And I ended up getting a lot of information about a lot of things. They eventually told me I have to ask the questions. So that was me taking the reins for myself to ask the questions that I wanted to know the answers to. And sometimes they would give me like information will come through. I would wake up and see something. It would show me the answer. And then I would wait and see if it came into my reality a couple more times. So in other words, I would walk through a shop, see a book, just open it up at the page that they told me the same information. And because of those coincidences, I started to recognize what the truth was. And and then it ended up exploring into when I turned 50, that I ended up, they shut that, it was not that they shut it down. I literally saw a big cross coming at me, and then it was the end of that era, kind of, so to speak. And they asked me to channel their wisdom through. So now I'm a channeler for these beings. I've also had many different really bizarre encounters, like throughout when I was seeing all these visions. I also asked to meet someone of high integrity. So that was a Cherokee Elder. And she took my hand once and for real and started talking to me telepathically. It's so many stories that I could share. And then I started to focus all of my gifts into, okay, what's humanity's potential? Because we're obviously not showing this and through schooling systems or anything. We're being shut down. So I started to get a lot more information about that. And that elder, she was specifically sent around the world to find what she calls the buffalo hearts. And they were Pleiadians, straight from Pleiades, like our souls are straight from Pleiades. So yeah, so that's a little bit of an intro. I just have so much to share. I don't even know where to start, honestly, but yeah, let's start with that.
Well, I gotta say, one of the things I loved about your bio was a lot of people, when they put in their bio, they're like, I'm this, I'm that, I'm this. But when I was reading yours, it's like I'm reading all the things you do, and then the last thing you put on there, I was like, I kind of started to laugh a little bit, and I was like, that is so awesome. And so, if you'd like, I'd like to take a moment to share that with everyone because I feel like it is so impactful. And what it is she says, I'm bridging humanity with new earth frequencies aligned with all. A motivational speaker, seer, channeler, empath, visionary, author, illustrator, artist, singer-songwriter, video producer, YouTuber, and a proud mom. I was like, that one at the end, I was like, just hit me. And I was like, that is so cool that's like the keynote right there is proud mom.
I really, really am. I just had my birthday and my daughters came around for my birthday and we were karaokeing together. So I got to hear them sing. Oh my God, they're so beautiful. I am so blessed. Absolutely. But I actually brought them up on my own. So I've got 3 daughters and one is actually in Sweden. She's a scientist over in Sweden, of all things. Totally opposite of me. But we just love each other so much. So I'm surrounded by love when it comes to my family.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
awesome. And again, happy birthday to you. And so I'm kind of curious, going back to your bridging humanity with new earth frequencies.
Mhm.
How did that start for you, and how do you go about actually bridging that and bringing people awareness to it?
Mhm. So the team that I'm working with, they gave me this really incredible dream, and it was like waking up in another reality. And I know, when you're dreaming, it feels different to when you're actually awake. But this was actually feeling like I was awake in the dream, so that vivid. And when I was in that space, it was what I would call the potential of humanity, but it wasn't actually coming from an outside force. It was coming from my inner self. So when I woke up, my mind was completely still. Like I didn't have the monkey chatter. I didn't have the logical mind trying to dictate what's going to happen next in the fear game and all of the guilt and all that sort of stuff. It's just shushed. It just was silent. And because of that, there was clarity of purpose, clarity of knowing oneself, clarity of being able to have these gifts coming in. So in that space, when I woke up, I actually was telepathic and I was conversing with some friends. It's kind of like in a future earth, higher dimension, higher aspect of myself. And then they were saying that they wanted to come over. And I'm like, this is all telepathically. And I'm like, yeah, sure. But can you, come to the door because I'm sort of in a phase here. Don't just appear in front of me. So they came to the door and my house was different, but it was on a mountain. And you could literally, we walked outside to have a cup of tea and I could manifest things in my hand. Like, it was so clear that you could just decide what you needed in your reality, and it could become true. So there is that. And when I actually came back, I ended up getting sucked into what like a tree that had already touched the ground. So it was like a donut torus shape. So it was like bringing me back into my body of this awareness. And they were teaching me that it's to do with our focus, our attention on what we're putting our attention to. So to bridge us into that new frequency, we need to start to lead our focus or our attention into what we actually want to create. And also give our right hemisphere, our feminine side of ourselves, our intuition and our imagination, some sort of power, not just, dismissing it like we've been taught, so that it can open up the vortex of unlimited possibilities that then, with our logical mind, we can decide what we want to ground in this world. So there's this whole other game that we can be playing rather than get fixated on what somebody else, as in the leaders, have been teaching us or controlling us with. We've literally given our imagination away to them, and then they have been using it for their own benefit. So this is kind of been awoken to the fact that we have a lot more within us, our power within us, but we have to learn to control our mind first. So my team took me on this massive journey of learning to control my mind.
And I love how you say, like, you've seen the earth as this torrid field. And
it was like source energy. It was like, I've actually seen it before when I came into oneness. There's a whole other story. And it was just when the CV was hitting. I don't know what we can actually say on this channel before you get taken down. So
I've said a lot of things. So
okay, you're right with me saying that word. Anyway, the CV, we all know what that is. Just before that happened in 2020, I had an experience of meeting oneness, and when it happened, I was taken into the Taurus energy again, and that I saw Earth just entering the vortex, and they showed me the journey that Earth, or humanity's consciousness, really had gone on. And we had gone on this feminine journey, and then we had shifted into a masculine journey. So we're learning all about our two kind of hemispheres of our brain, two personalities within ourselves, of how to ground things and how to bring in through wisdom from source energy and our past lives and so forth. So as one was going into the masculine, we had to shut down or put to sleep the feminine, because it would overpower the masculine in the retrospective, it would muck up a lot of different dimensions. So when I actually went into oneness, humanity's consciousness on Earth was just entering this vortex of what we call the quickening, or my team calls a quickening. So at the very central point of that experience is just light, just love, going on a journey. So, but when I actually went through it, I ended up falling back into myself again and recognizing that I was also oneness. From my perspective, and what I see was that as well. So, so it's quite it's a different understanding where logic couldn't really grasp that, but it is validated by the fact that we are the creators of this reality in every choice that we make. Yeah.
Right. And so I'm curious, because I feel like I had similar experience. And as you realize in this field, the balance, when you find the balance of it, like you're saying, the masculine, feminine, and I'd also go as far as to say is what we call the positive and negatives fields, is the balance between the two. I do find that I can hear like voices, or I can hear ancient, or not necessarily ancient, but people from the past who are trying to share something. I can get little glimmers of them trying to tell a story. And so I'm wondering if that's because we're learning that time is not, and ourselves are not in a linear, but we're in a loop, so to speak. And so
Mm.
if you put that loop in the torrid field, is that why all of a suddenly we're all getting all these abilities? Is because we're engaging what we were born with, and all of that is activating.
Mm. Yeah, I think that we're coming into through finding that stillness within ourselves, or balance, like you said. We are interacting with source energy, which is all we really are in the end, going on a journey. Like they showed me that ball of light or love or whatever you want to call it, just exploding out to trillions of different life forms. And then we could, as a source energy, we take a line. Our soul takes a line of what experience we want to connect to. So when you're connecting from the central point of that, you've got all of those past lives that could come to you. So all the gifts of the past lives, the meeting ups of all of the souls that you've met in those past lives, and all the wisdom that you hold, all of that is retained within the imagination, actually. And the imagination has a lot of history of our soul's past lives and lineage. That's why if you've taken a savant autistic, and they haven't been taught how to play the piano absolutely incredible, and they just can, it's because their logic is out of the way. And so they're completely in tune with that right hemisphere, which understands source energy a lot better. And that also carries through the gifts of what the soul has already been through or understood. There was another thing that my team took me to, is a guy called Dr. Ramachandran. And when he did his work, he found somebody. He always worked with trying to understand the brain. And he found somebody who didn't have the corpus callosum that was joining the two hemispheres together, so he could connect devices to this person and ask just the left hand hemisphere a question and just the right hemisphere a question. And when he asked the left hemisphere, does God exist? It straight out is an atheist. It doesn't believe in something beyond what's happened in this reality in a physical sense. And then he asked the right hemisphere, and absolutely, of course, it's connected, has that connection to our past lives from our soul's perspective. So yeah, there's two different types of past lives. There's the body past life and the DNA that you've actually came into, and all of the lineage of the DNA that's come through as a physical form. And then there's the soul's past life of what that's gone through. So because I've come straight from Pleiades and that sector, when I was born, I wasn't born into a family that kind of knew me. I would have been maybe an observer of that, but I hadn't actually been in this bloodline, if you get what I mean. So for me to shift things in the lineage sense of my past relations, I had to do a lot of shadow work to do that. Yeah, there's so much more we could go into. I told you we would go down a deep dark rabbit hole.
Oh, I'm enjoying this. And I love how you pointed out that there's two different past lives, because when I find, like, in my situation, in my experience, I feel akin to Native American or indigenous tribes, but according to my DNA, it's not there. And so it's like, so it's not in the genetic, as
Yeah,
far as I know, because, most indigenous tribes aren't in the DNA registry. So you really can't know unless you have a relative that's in the tribes. But that aside, is, feeling that kin, and then feeling a little disappointed when it doesn't show up in the
yeah.
registry. But it's
But
like,
you know it, right?
yeah,
You have this essence, this knowing within you, and we've been told to dismiss the knowing, which is ridiculous. It's there for a purpose. You don't you have this feeling, such a strong feeling towards that you have been in those tribes. And of course, your soul could have gone in those tribes. And then you're like, okay, the next step that my soul needs to take is to branch out so that I can become, an interviewee for so many other people and understand the other side of the coin of not just sticking to the soul's lineage of just being as an Indian in past lives, if you understand what I mean. So you branched out to maybe, I don't know, we were talking about Scottish people and stuff. You obviously, I don't know what you are, but so you branched down to the European place, and so that now you can have a bit more fuller understanding of that side of the coin as well. It's a growth thing. Soul wants to evolve. Soul wants to grow. It wants to learn. It wants to expand. Wants to learn how to create adventures. And when it's been dismissed like it has in humanity's consciousness, we are caught in this cycle of never-ending limitation, only growing in a certain way that one person or one family dynamic over there who monopolizes on the money has told us to focus in on. But all we have to do is shift our focus, right? What do we actually want to create? It's just so much more.
so I'm kind of curious too, because a lot of people are starting to hear about hybrids and, like you were saying, being Pleiadian born here on Earth. So I would classify that as, I would call them star beings. And I'm wondering, do you feel like when you entered into the torrid field and became one and understood that was your kind of like your star side activating and saying, okay, we are now going to take and expand you from just the human-esque part of yourself, and we're now going to expand and bring this in now and truly bring the full essence of who you are up? Or do you feel like
it's a
before you
ground.
entered that field you already had started that?
Yeah, it's like I already was very connected to my soul even when I was little. I even had, UFOs coming to the bedroom. I've had so many things happen to me, so it's kind of like, okay, this world's different, but then nobody else is having the same things happening to them. Yeah.
I remember those days.
Yeah, but it's actually really interesting right here, right now, in this time zone. There are those that have been so-called original chosen. We're all chosen, obviously. I don't believe not one person is chosen, because we're all source energy going on this amazing, beautiful adventure. But there was a cry out from humanity, where humanity was going through the wars and so forth, and they're like, okay, we've had enough of this. And so when they screamed out internally for help, it literally opened up a vortex for what we call maybe the indigos and crystals to be born through different parent lines, which are coming straight from higher benevolence and different sectors of the universe, or the planetary involvements and all that. So yeah, now though, those that you would call star children, star beings, we're actually right in this really pinnacle phase right at the moment to be awoken to that understanding that we are all of that as well. So there's this big transition that's happening at the moment for those light workers, and it's more of a grounding, because we've had to learn to love ourselves so much more than what we were told being born into this world. We're now learning to love ourselves, and that's opening up the fact that our soul can infuse, or light can infuse more into ourselves. And so now we are, that's awakening the DNA aspect of ourselves to, and the light within our DNA to remembering a lot more, because it's bringing in this information, or this coded information through the light. I'm literally channeling this now, by the way, guys. And this happens quite often with me. And so it will awaken up the cells to, oh my gosh, I am more than what I thought I was when I didn't love myself. So now I can feel, there's an essence that you feel of who you were in those past lives. And then you can bring through those gifts because you start to remember what gifts you actually had on those other planes of existence. But the other planes of existence might not match up with this frequency. So there's still a choice or some sort of logical essence that has to be agreed to. Our logical mind has to agree to that gift still coming in to be grounded here. Because say, for instance, you were born on a planet that was all in water and a totally different gravity. Then all of a sudden you're like, okay, I want to fly because I felt like I was flying in that world. That's literally how it felt. And in this world, we're like, okay, well, yes, you could, but there's a lot more focused attention you have to have on yourself and gravity. And so there's, and gravity doesn't even exist when it comes to the core. They're actually telling me gravity doesn't even exist there. Okay, it's interesting. We could go into all sorts of things when they start coming through. But yeah, so there's a lot more scope anyway that's been awoken with what we call the star children and so forth. And then what they will do is walk this planet as they truly are, the magnificence of themselves. And then it will awaken many other humans because they will start to see in reflection their own source energy within themselves, awakening their right hemisphere and all of their soul's journey that they have gone on. So it's really interesting what's going on at the moment.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting as you were explaining all of that. I was sitting there and I was thinking to myself, I've seen this and it's like unfolding before me and realizing I've seen this and didn't even register to me what I was seeing until you had brought that up. And what it is the Matrix movie. When
Yes,
Neo becomes the one, so to speak, he doesn't become the savior. He becomes one with everything he is and everything around. But what's interesting is when he engages it, so to speak, the bubble that came out, I thought, well, that's, an interesting energy bubble that went off. But now it's like, as I'm re-looking at it, it was like him in the torrid field and the
yeah,
field expanding and then collapsed back into him. And so it's like him becoming the torrid field and then was able to do
yeah.
everything.
It's an awareness, see? And the more that we learn to feel within our bodies, the more aware we become of everything that we can be entangled with. And anything outside of us is just an extension of ourselves and our bodies. So it's really funny because the elder that I was working with, she was looking at Matrix and said, that's a documentary. That's literally what where humanity is. And we're all going, oh, really?
And I feel like so many people were misconstruing it because they were like, Neo's the one. Everybody was going, okay, what is
Yeah,
Neo going to do? Neo has to save us. And
that's
what
because we've been
happens
taught, because we've been taught
is,
to look outside of ourselves for one savior or one person that will save
right,
us, because we're not taking our self-support back, and we're not, so but it's more of an inside job, and you are all the one, but it's different levels of awareness that you can. How are you going to center yourself enough to be able to become entangled again with those past lives that you've already been on? If you
right.
really go through all of the past lives, you've actually been on every single past life. Every single living thing is source energy, so you could just keep going. But we're talking about the ones that are relevant to this reality that we're creating now. So a lot of the star beings actually went on a journey before they actually left their planet. their souls might have gone to Arcturians to pick up some information on Arcturians, and then gone through to, say, living on the moon or something for a while just to feel into the vibe, and then coming as one human that was just going to pass over at the age of 2 just to feel in, or not even be born, just to feel into the vibration, get used to it, and then actually be born in this time zone right here, right now. So there's a journey that the soul might have gone on before to prepare it for this mission that they were going on. They could have gone in the past, back in 1800s or something, and forward. They could have gone forward either, because there is no time constraint when it comes to the soul either. So some of us are, even when I do these intuitive counseling sessions, especially the starseed missions that I do one-on-ones with, some of them, they've actually come from the future because they want to bridge that gap from here till there. It's really interesting, some of the stories that come through.
Yeah. I felt like that was like kind of my experience for a little while, because like certain events wouldn't hit me or phase me like everyone would expect. And it's like, because I was like, yeah, I knew that was going to happen. That was already, it's like I've already gone through all the emotional that you did, but for you, it's happening now. And then there was like a certain point to where it's like I woke up one day and I felt a little lost, because I was like, I don't know what's coming anymore.
That's exactly where I'm at. And like, I usually can feel into the future, but because I'm learning to create my future now, it's like, oh my God, where do I step?
Yeah.
And everything's crumbled down around me. So I've been this just open slather of, I could travel, my children have just left, everything's just, and I'm like free to do whatever in a way. So yeah, it's really interesting at this moment. I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
And I find it interesting too, like that we're how as people, uh, talking about being Pleiadian or Arcturian or Syrian or Lyran, wherever. The one thing I always found interesting with me when growing up, especially in my 20s and 30s, it's like I felt like I was, as you were saying, the observer, because I'd
Mm.
always say, look at what you humans are doing. Look at what, and I would never feel like I was in that
Yeah.
like race, so to speak, and going, yeah, this is a human experience that I'm watching. I don't
Yeah.
feel going through it, and it feels awkward,
Mm.
and it feels strange to be like going, yeah, I should be really emotionally charged by this, but I'm not.
Yeah.
And I can't get charged. I can't engage any emotion to this. And I finally figured out it's because my star side at the time had taken over. And it's like, yeah, we're not human,
Yeah.
we're star. And so we're seeing it on a different level.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, that's how I've always seen things as well. I used to say, I take my hat off to humanity for creating what they have, even though their imagination's been hijacked.
Yeah. I even have had,
And their imagination's not hijacked.
yeah,
Oh my God. Yeah.
I've even had moments where I sat back and I look into the stars or to the sky and I go,
Mm.
forgive them, stars. They don't know what they do. Humanity does not understand what they're doing right now.
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
still able to be helped. We can still help them.
Yeah. I remember when I was a kid, I was 11 years old, and at the same time, there was a big, huge thing that was going over the news where there was like TV people jumping on planes trying to capture these UFOs going around around Kaikoura, big balls, orange balls of light and so forth. And the same time I actually had a visitation, and Kaikoura is about 3 to 4 hour drive from where I was in Kaipoi near Christchurch. This is in New Zealand. I mean, but you know, UFO is like a 2-second
Right.
drive, whatever, you know, flight. Any case, I remember waking up and seeing this brilliant orange ball of light outside my bedroom window. And at first, because I didn't know anything about UFOs at that time, so I'm like looking up going, what is that? It must be a traffic light, you know. Then I realized the motorway is way down lower, a lot smaller, further away, and this thing was a big ball of light in the sky. I'm like, okay, you're not a traffic light, you're too far up. And it was like sitting there, just like almost felt like it was contacting me, like observing me, but also in my mind. And I was pretty pathetic when I was a kid. I was crying a lot because I felt everybody. I felt everything and everybody. So if someone was upset with me, they didn't even have to say boo, and I'd just be like, how are you doing, left beauty boy? You know, it's just pretty sad. Very emotionally, entangled with everyone else's emotions, which was pretty tough back then. But this actual orange ball of light started to converse with me telepathically. I didn't know at the time, and it was saying, oh, yes, we've found you. And I'm sitting there going, who the hell am I to be found, you know, in my head. And then all of a sudden it just goes and just disappears, like it just shoots out the side, flies off really fast. And I froze. I did not move, not one finger in my bed. I just froze, and so I was sweating profusely. I didn't want to move. I felt like I was there for an hour. And then my father walked into my room. Now, my father never walks into my room, never did before, never did after. I asked him, he never walked into my room. So it was not my father. And he sat on my bed and he took my hand and he just calmed me down. And then he left and he didn't say anything, which is not like my father either. He would have said something, right? And yeah, since then, I'd been found on the roof of our house running backwards. I don't know how I did that. Because I tried standing up on the roof of our houses like this. And I'm like, how did I even run backwards on the roof of our house with my hands up in the air? And my mum come home from work and she's like, what are you doing on the roof of the house? Come back inside. Yeah, I have had some crazy ass experiences, and I just thought, oh, you know, everyone has something. Everyone. I could hear them whispering in the corner of my room. Oh, there was just so much. I used to scare the crap out of people. So yeah, my friends were like coming in and out once I got too far with what I knew. It was beyond what they knew. So yeah, you feel different. You just know you're different. It's just part of the course, really. That's why I love doing these interviews now, because I can just be me, right?
Right. And I gotta say, when you said you were a mess as a kid, crying all the time, I say we gotta give ourselves credit because we were engaging aspects that were not, you know, you had no one to go to say, hey, you know, I have this going on. Like,
I feel
the
this.
way to describe it is like if you go to X-Men, you know, we didn't have a Charles Xavier and the Xavier Institute to help us learn to harness what we're doing. We had to figure it out ourselves.
It's so
And
true.
that is hard to do. And so
Yeah.
the current generation that's coming in, I feel like is blessed because we're here to say, yeah, I've been there. We've done that.
Yeah.
We're here for you. It's like, and
we have empathy for that because of what we've gone through when we didn't have anyone to turn to. And we were told that we were, you know, sooks, or, you know, we shouldn't be so soft. Oh my gosh.
Like, you're crazy for believing what you believe. You should be
Oh
in a mental institute. And I'm like,
yeah.
I haven't had one person say to me, because I was like, yeah, I feel like I'm in contact with this, something, and it's helping me to do this or that. And they're like,
Yeah.
well, I hate to say it, but if you're saying what I think you're saying, you should be crucified. I was like, excuse me? And so, I mean, that's what we grew up with.
But then that
There was so
person
much
probably,
fear.
yeah, that person probably came from a life where they used to crucify people. So he was like, go straight to the know of what his, where he's just come from.
That,
Yeah.
or he was like, hey, cool, I got a job. Come with me. I can do it again.
Oh my God.
Like, no, not this time.
No.
But I feel like too, though, is kind of going through that, like we call them crucibles in mainstream. I feel like in the metaphysics, they're more commonly known as what is it? Um, God, I just had it on the tip of my tongue. It's not shadow work. It's kind of shadow work, but it's on a deeper level. Dark night of the soul.
Yeah.
And so I feel like we've gone through
Mm.
one, two, maybe three of
3,
those
4,
along the
5,
journey.
6. Yeah. So
But
many.
that's
Got to
allowed us
this
to,
stage and I'm exhausted from it. I don't want to
yeah.
go through anymore. I've had enough. They're like, this is the last one. I'm like, ah.
Like, that's what you said 5 ago. What do you, we need to discuss what the word last one
Yeah.
means.
Yeah, because every time you shift, well, every time I've shifted, all of my friends have fallen away because you shift out of their vibration, you move into another sector of what you're learning, and you just got to keep going with the flow of it. So there's a breaking down of your life a lot through this journey as a star being or star self. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I'll tell you another cool story too. I think you would like. Well, there's quite a few cool stories. One of the ones when they were trying to get my attention, to listen to them to help me clear my mind. I was traveling to Akaroa and with my fiance at the time, and he was a photographer, so he was looking out for just a beach somewhere just to park and take lots of photos. And it was quite a few hours drive, and I was really negative. I was 27, just negative now, like bleh. Yeah, it's going to be cold. It's going to be boring. He's going to take photos. It's going to leave me with my daughter. I'm going to be really bored, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, this voice comes in my head, starts chatting to me. And the first thing it said was, why don't you just try to think more positively? And this wasn't to get me to just think positively. This was actually starting off as a training for me to be able to control my mind. So on the way there, I'm like discussing with this subtle voice in my head going, yeah, why would I do that? It's just not going to take me anywhere. It's going to be awful anyway. And then they're saying, why don't you just give it a go? No one else can hear what's inside your head anyway. I'm like, yeah, whatever. So we park on this beach and he takes off like I knew he would and take his photos and stuff. And my daughter was jumped out and she was just playing in front of me. And I had this voice in my head saying, open the car door and dig in the sand. And we were in at a car park where this was just random. There's beaches all along, going to Akaroa. Anyway, so I jumped out of the car and I was like, where do I dig? And this like glimmer, like the sand sparkled. I'm like, oh, I'll dig there. So I just dug about 2 to 3 inches down, dug up a solid gold bracelet worth $1,000.
Oh my God.
And then I was like, okay, you got my attention.
Yeah. Why can't my guides ever do that?
Yeah, but then I ended up coming to Australia and I was really in the zone and I lost it in a nightclub. And I'm like, oh, see, it actually moved me to Australia. All this positive thinking got me on this. I just knew what I had to do then, and I wasn't afraid to take that leap, massive leap of faith for me, to move to Australia. So as soon as I got to Australia, it was like, oh, you don't need the gold anymore. Like, I really wish I could.
Yeah, I kind of did, actually.
Yeah, couldn't I just keep it? Yeah, so that's one of the stories. Another one is when I knew I had to travel somewhere and I didn't know where. So we're fast forwarding quite a way forward here. David Icke. I don't know if you know David Icke.
I do.
Yeah, so he was traveling in Australia at that time in 2011. He was doing a tour. I'd already booked a ticket to go see him, and that was about it. And then I get this pull, I have to go somewhere, and I'm like, why do I have to feel like I have to go somewhere and travel somewhere? And I went to sleep and I had a dream of being on a bus and being at Uluru. And I'm like, Ularu's the mountain in the central space of Australia, in the center of Australia. It's very, very, very sacred. So I wake up from this dream and straight away get on my computer, and here's his email from David Icke saying, I'm going to choose 20 people to go with me to Uluru. And I'm like, well, obviously I'm going, because I just was there. Like I was on the bus there, and I didn't know who was going to take care of my girls at the time because their dad was being a pain in the butt. But he actually texted me and said he wanted them for those exact dates. It was like my team was just clearing this path. I had to go to Uluru. So I ended up getting the phone call from them and saying, yeah, she actually said I was the first one pulled out of the hat. So this is just crazy, right?
Man.
So yeah, I ended up.
You hire your team out for others?
So I ended up going to Uluru, and there was some crazy. I mean, this story can stretch out for hours, but with David Icke on the bus. But when we got there, I was like, oh, if I'm supposed to do something, I'm supposed to do something. And I just sort of said to the mountain, my name is what my the Cherokee Elder gave me a name, Alana Wananahi, which is to do with leading people through to the new earth. It actually means turtle fairy. And then as I'm walking down this path after I said, I'm Alana Wananahi. If you want me to do something, fine. If you don't, we're leaving in a plane, whatever. I'm not forcing anything to happen. So I walked down this path, and this guy's like, I went to walk up to this guy that I thought was the bus driver, and he was keeping an eye on me because he thought I was going to do a ceremony, and he was really in with the original Australian tribes. So he was making sure that I was doing kosher, and I'm like, I wouldn't do anything wrong anyway. But I walked up to him to chat to him about this portal, these portals that I got the sense of around the actual mountain. And he just turned around and said to me, oh my God, I just saw a turtle in the rocks in Uluru. You have to come with me. And I'm like, huh? Because my name was Alanawa, which meant turtle, right? And I actually had carried that piece of paper that the Cherokee Elder gave to me. I had it on me at the time. Anyway, he pulls me into the mountain, and we ended up, there was like a crevasse, like two shared cliffs that you could like squeeze yourself into. They're about 1.5 to 2 feet apart. So I end up squeezing next to him. He's here, I'm there. And then he like looks this side and he goes, can you see the turtle? And I'm like, kind of see what you're seeing, but he could see it. And I'm like, I'm not going to dismiss what he can see above myself just because I couldn't. But all of a sudden we're like together, male, female, in the mountain. We're not allowed to be there, by the way. Anyway, I put my hands on the rock. I said, I'd already had the Pleiadians come to me before, and when they came to me, they put their forehead on my forehead and started chanting, starting with Ra and all these different syllables. So I said, let's put our forehead on the rock. I don't know what I'm going to chant, but we're chanting. He started doing it first, so I felt comfortable. So we're like chanting. Oh my God, it was like this energy came like a pulse, like a really slow heartbeat. And my hands started to shake. And all of the messages that I'd had from my when they had given me those dreams of potential humanities, potential, those future Earths and all of that, come rushing through my thoughts, and like it was going through me into the mountain. And then I was discussing with the mountain. I was like, many already awoken. She's like, I'll help you awaken many more. And I'm like, okay. And then I'm like, oh man, we've got to get back to the bus because the bus is going to leave. We've got a plane to catch this afternoon. And I turned and I looked at the bus driver, and I'm like, I think we've got to go. And he's like, he looked at me, and his pupil of his eyes was huge, like he was on drugs or something. He hadn't taken anything, but they just like went really big. And he's reaching out, going, oh my God, none of it's real. None of it's real. He's spacing out, going, none of it's real. So I'm like grabbing him, going, God, I hope you're together to be able to drive the bus. We get to the path where I met him, and straight up looked at him, and it wasn't the bus driver. I wouldn't have followed anyone else because I knew the bus driver was in with the original Australians tribes. So I wouldn't have followed this guy, but I would follow the bus driver. So as soon as it was on the path, it wasn't him. The bus driver was actually back at the bus going, they've gone in the mountains. They shouldn't have done that. And I'm like, oh my God, well, this has just happened. What do you do? It's one of those weirdo trips, right? Had to be there.
I'm just picturing David too going, this is the last time we pick this lady. She's going to get me banned from all these sites and everything.
It is nuts. Actually, the day before, there was this big ceremony that was happening, and the person who was sitting next to me, and everyone knows him too. He's quite a known person. I wish I remembered his name now. Sorry. Anyway, he had this talking stick that he was taking to the team that was doing the ceremony. And that night that they did that, lightning was striking the mountain. It was so crazy. It was crazy. Yeah. So then the next day I had that thing happen to me, and I don't know, but it was pretty out there. Pretty amazing. So yeah, that's another one of my crazy stories.
So we have a question from the chat room, but I'm not quite sure if your team can answer it or not, because it's kind of a question that's been asked a lot and everybody gives different answers. But Woo Riders DG is asking, when will aliens show themselves to humanity openly, and what's holding them back?
Okay. So first up, they told me that there was a few that actually tried to go through the leadership, seeing if they were ready, but they weren't ready. So that's the end of that story. So what they've decided to do, I mean, these things are always malleable, which we're interchangeable with what's going to happen depending on how humanity is raising their vibration. But there is a set goal that's definitely going to happen. They told me that there's a select few, especially those that are star beings, and it's not just stars, people from souls from the stars, but there are others that are ready and open that will be contacted first through telepathy, because they need to be able to get used to the vibration of these beings. So when we start to get used to the vibration, we're up leveling our vibration to meet theirs. And so the telepathy is the best way to start to converse. And then when our logical mind starts to agree, yes, this is for real, I've had too many synchronicities happening here, I have to take this on board as a truth, then there's going to become an actual contact, like real contact physical contact eventually. But these things will happen over the next decades or so. And depending on, and there's going to be specific groups as well. They call them pods for some reason, pods of people, groups of people that are awoken. And so they're more likely to have the contact than someone who's still stuck in the old thing, unless it was actually a mission of theirs, because there's so many different missions of souls. Some souls are specifically supposed to stay entrenched in the actual logical story, society, and then awaken many through their awakening at a specific time. So they might be contacted, but they already would have been set by their soul. Their soul would have already decided that was going to happen.
Right. And
that's the only thing I can say at the moment. I don't know anything, by the way.
And that makes total sense. And my parents shared with me a story where a guide was channeling through, and they were saying, you could park a UFO outside in the parking lot, and out of 10 people, 5 who don't believe will go outside and see nothing, just get in their car, drive away.
Yes.
The 3 that believe will be in awe of it, and the 2 that are on the fence will say, well, there's something there, but I wouldn't say it's a UFO, but there is something there. So it's like, it's all a matter of your perspective.
Yeah, your awareness and your perspective. So yes, it absolutely can happen in this lifetime, though. Absolutely.
I kind of feel like it somewhat has, because there's so many people coming forward. Yeah. But yeah,
and sometimes it's funny, like it can happen to you, but then you've still got to get up the next day and go to work, and you're like, holy crap, it's kind of like daunting, the fact that something crazy like that, or something unusual, I wouldn't like to use the word crazy, has happened to you, and you sort of just put it over there for a while. The most important thing is learning to control your own mind and your own thoughts so that you can come into your own self-awareness of more. I do a lot of channeling on my show, and they were channeling through all sorts of things about color vibration and being able to see more colors and why that happens and that sort of thing, depending on what's happening through the channeling. But there's just a lot more to learn when we go into these higher frequencies and understanding who we are.
Right. And Rue Writers, I see your question, but I feel like that's more on the lines of my series, Riding Through the Unknown. So if you bring that there, we can answer it, but I don't know. That's kind of getting into grounds we don't normally cover in this show. I can leave it up to you, Bobbie, if you want to try and answer it. It's about military and underground bases and reptilians.
Really? You can go into all of that?
Yeah.
I didn't know that this show could go that far, right?
I'm the host. I'll take it wherever it wants to go.
And they'll take me down if I start speaking about this stuff. That's why I've been really careful about things.
Well, he's wanted to know. Other question: there has been multiple reports of former military men and women who say they worked at deep underground military bases, saw reptilians.
Yeah.
One rule is they couldn't say Jesus Christ. I don't know about that rule. And he goes, do you know why? I've never heard that rule about not being able to say Christ.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the Jesus thing either, other than moving yourself into a higher vibration where that you're not going to be controlled anymore by that sector. The reptilians are here for a specific purpose. They're actually waking us up it's literally like an overbearing father, and we're like the teenager learning to become the adult, you should do what I say. And then we're like, really? But we've got this whole other imagination that we can use over here. but yeah, they definitely, the blue bloods and that part of, all of that, that's an absolute, that's definitely. I actually, when I first heard that, because I asked for the true history of humanity, and it took over 10 years for 4 different species to come visit me and give me their version of the true history. The reptilians were one of those that came in because they are part of humanity's DNA, moving into, the logical frame of mind and learning all about that outside world. But they have gone to the point, they've got to the point where they're over-consuming and they're consuming everything. But that's what we have to do. We have to put it back in its line, just the same as in a reflection of our minds. We have to put our logical mind back in its space and tell it to just shush. We're not going to give it that much, power anymore. That's what's going to happen overall in the end. But that's all I could really say on the subject, I think, at the moment.
No, I think you said it well, and I kind of agree. And I will say, it's interesting that you say former military, because I feel like some of our military is actively working with them in certain areas. And so I wouldn't limit it to former, but yeah, that's a, like Bobbie was saying earlier, that's a rabbit hole that could take days to go down and answer.
There's so much information in my head, honestly. It's crazy.
No, but we're actually at the hour. We're maybe a minute over. So if you need to go, we can, or if you got time for a couple other questions or any other stories you want to share.
I've got time for a couple of other questions. Yeah, that's fine.
So my question to you is, through your experiences and all you've gone through, what story and experience do you look at and go, this is my favorite because it's like, this is what sums up why I do what I do, kind of story?
Probably the New Earth experience, even though I've had a lot of other different ones. Like waking up in that New Earth with my mind completely still gave me a compass. It's like, I know where I'm going now. I know I have to learn to still my mind and, take control of that, to be able to go into the higher frequencies, to be able to claim back my gifts, so to speak, and that anyone can do this. It's not just me. So that was really, really profound. But I've had so many stories.
I find it interesting for a moment, if I can, that you're seeing Earths of the future. I have seen the Earths of the past, and ironically, we call Earth the third rock from the sun. And from my soul's perspective, this is the third Earth version we're in right now.
Okay.
And so it's like there's a 3 that keeps appearing.
Yeah. Well, we're in the 3D, right? The 3D.
Right.
Yeah. And the 2, the second planet, Venus, is all about love. And the fourth one, which is stability, is Mars. Like, it's everywhere, right? It's whatever's within us. The vortex of us is in a bigger scenario out there. It's that Fibonacci, is it the Fibonacci sequence where it keeps going around? And fractals of life, where you think you're going into some other story, into a bigger story. You're actually just repeating in a different way, in a bigger way. We can use 10%. Well, let's just round it off to 10%. 10% of our brain, 10% of our DNA, 10% of the stars that we see out there. But as soon as we become more aware, then we are waking up more of our DNA. Then we're starting to use more of our mind in a harmonious way, and we start to see way more stars. So as we're starting to progress, humanity's evolution is growing. Yes, it might at the moment, because we're only being taught to look outside ourselves for all of this. Eventually we'll look outside and we'll just see a mess. And so that mess will crumble and we'll have to come back into ourselves. Just like at the beginning of this era, so to speak, of the quickening, when COVID hit stuff and Earth actually went, I saw it go into the Taurus energy vortex, and we all got returned home. And what's home? Home is within ourselves, but taking our power back and being able to find at any given moment, life happens, crap happens, things happen. But if you can snap back into central place as quickly as possible, you can take bigger risks. You can do bigger leaps into more adventure, because at any given time you can snap back into, but I'm central, I'm fine, I can shift this. And you can always shift it from that space. I actually did do this because they taught me, after finding that gold bracelet, they taught me how to control my mind enough to still it for at least a moment. And I was out camping one day and I just went, you know what, I'm going to put this to the test. So I just went to this field over the other side of the river, and it's just a cow paddy field, and I just went, okay, I'm going to sit down, close my eyes, not look at what I'm doing, and I am going to pick a 4-leaf clover. And if I central myself enough to be at 0 point, everything exists at the same time as nothing exists. So I will pick a 4-leaf clover. And I did that. I actually opened my eyes and went, holy crap. Oh my God, I really got to take responsibility for all my thoughts and everything, So when you get to that point, and then you go back into the story and society, and you get caught in the whirlwind of relationships, and then you go, but I can shift it. And it goes back and forth like this for a while. I get lost, and then I get found, and then I get lost. But the quicker we can do this, the more adventures we can actually have, because we never actually lose ourselves anymore. We have our control back. We don't need to listen to an outside fraction to tell us what to do anymore. We've found the center of ourselves within ourselves, and loving who we are makes a big, big, big difference.
Yeah. So I actually got 2 questions that popped in my head, and one going along where we're at right now, talking about being still in the moment. And I'm picturing that scene from Star Trek Insurrection. I don't know if you saw that, where
I love Star Trek, so I probably know.
well, there's a scene where they're talking about she tells them just to be still, and they see these debris or petals and dust just start falling very slowly to the point where they almost are still. And I'm wondering, and she's like, you're experiencing a true moment. And as you're talking about your experiences of going into the field and everything, is that what it's like? Are they really kind of showing us what it would be like? Or is that kind of Hollywood saying, hey, if it don't look like this, you're doing it wrong, so don't even try it?
I didn't see anything I just felt it. I felt like there was, in my mind, it was like nothing. And I could only hold it for a moment, and enough, though, for me to pick a blade of what I thought was a blade of grass, logically thinking, a blade of grass. But my mind was absolute clarity, like absolutely anything is possible here at the same time as I'm picking something physical. Because the physical world is just a natural reflection of our internal energy fields. That's been channeled. Yeah. So it's funny, I can tell when I'm channeling, because I'm listening to myself speaking and I'm going, I don't know that.
Right.
But I know that, it's like I can feel them in my head having a discussion. So we are, it's like everything is energy. And if you go into quantum physics, it's just energy, right? And as the observer, you are creating your existence in the particle world. where everything is just a waveform before that anyway. So waveform is all possibilities, and we are now honing into what ones we actually want. So if we're giving a lot of attention to TV, to news, to all of that hoo-ha that's out there, and we're starting to feel anxiousness about it and all of that, then we're actually creating that world. We're bringing that world into our world. So this is all about, you know what, don't want to listen to that anymore. I want to create a whole other world over here. So what do I really desire? What do I really, really want to bring in? And that's more important at the moment, because the more of us that do this work, that actually start to go, I'm going to go to the stars and back, you know. I am going to invite my beautiful star being friends, like your question from your viewer asked. I'm going to ask them to come in, and I'm going to believe this 100%. You know, it's going to happen. It's absolutely going to happen to me in my lifetime. Then sure, there's no reason why that cannot happen. But you have to align with them. So you might go through a lot of shadow work. So you might go all of a sudden in a relationship that's facing you off with absolute crap. And you're like, whoa, hang on, I didn't ask for this. Well, yeah, you did. Because you weren't in the right space or mind to be able to handle this higher frequency where they don't have fear, they don't have guilt, they don't have blame game, they don't have judgment. You know, we have to learn to do the shadow work to move into their frequency.
Right. And I gotta say, one of the questions that just popped in my head was when you were describing picking a blade of grass, and I was thinking, I was like having like a Matrix moment of going, ooh, when she was sitting in the field and picked a 4-leaf clover, did she really pick a blade of grass and manifested it into a 4-leaf clover? And when she opened her eyes, it was a 4-leaf clover.
I honestly don't know, because I have my eyes closed. I was just in the zone. But what does it matter either way, right?
Right. No, I know, but I was just
Yeah,
meaning that,
yeah.
you know, that's the coolness, because you say I can manifest things, and so it's like, yeah, it may not look like what we want when we pick it up, but
Yeah,
we can change it into whatever we want.
exactly, right? And that's the brilliance of the imagination that can come through, but it has to be grounded as well. So that's why we have to tell our logical mind to shush, because if it has any chance of coming into our reality, it'll be going, yeah, what a load of shit.
And
You won't.
and I jokingly say there's a ring around the planet that keeps us here because we're the only planet that thinks and operates the way we do. And the star beads are like, no way in hell are we letting you come into our frequency and space and bring
Yeah,
this and
yeah.
undo all the centuries of what we've done.
Yeah. Well, we have been closed, we have been locked down so that we can experiment with just the outside world. Because if we started experimenting with just the outside world and creating what we're doing and not taking into account our intuition and all that, then we will, if we did that with an open vortex, we'd muck up all the different dimensions, because our imagination will go into all those different dimensions, and then we'd try to infiltrate it with what we want to create, you know. So we've kind of been what the Cherokee Elder said, where the principal people just came and went, we're going to close you in, which then put the feminine side of ourselves to sleep so that we can explore the masculine side of ourselves, which is in all the fairy tales, Sleeping Beauty, Snow White, like it's there. But this is the awakening of the feminine side and the feminine power. So now here comes the imagination. Now, what do we want to actually create? So when we look outside the world, it looks all messed up because everyone's creating all these things, right? That is just getting crazy out there and believing all sorts of weirdo stuff. But then there will come a time where it's just like, okay, what do we really, really want here? And it will kind of, they're showing me it going, woo, like just a big, okay, fixed into more of a practical version of a higher earth reality. Because even the future that I went to is something in a higher dimensional aspect of humanity's consciousness, but not exactly where we're going to, because we've got to take into account everybody else's realities as well. So there's going to be a collaboration, a unity, but that comes from a feeling based more human. So there's so much more that we can expect. Sometimes I wonder where it's taking me. Where are we going?
It kind of sounds like if you watch the series Star Trek Enterprise, which was the formation of the Federation, and the biggest thing was we were constantly going out and trying to put our notion and principles into space, and our interactions with other cultures. And they're like, you realize you're responding to everything human. You're not responding as they are.
Yes.
And that's the thing we have to do, I think, is to grow up, is to say, let go of our notions of, as humans, this is what we have to do, and go, okay, we're not limited anymore as a true universal being. What is our new,
what's our new, what do we actually want to bring in and ground? And it's so interesting too that the AI is now like doing all that creative work with the art and stuff like that. I mean, them aside, what they're creating is an outside influence of our imagination waking up. And now we can say, when we see those beautiful pictures of those beautiful homes and everything, which ones do we want to ground? What do we want to create? We can create any of those because we know how to physically create them. So, there's just so much more. We could be entangling two worlds together where you can manifest what you want, but you can also physically create it depending on how you want to explore this world or these dimensions. There's just so much more scope. I'm just wondering where we're actually going to go. That's going to be so interesting.
Right. And I think
I was half listening to you then too, because I was plugging in my computer because it was running out of battery. So I'm so sorry if I missed some of that conversation.
Oh, no, you're fine. And I was just going to say is, to me, the first major step, in my opinion and experience, of witnessing humanity, if we're going to evolve and grow as we're meant to, I think the first thing we have to do is lose the duality, because the universe is not a dualistic system. And as long as we focus on a dualistic system, I think it's kind of a construct that limits us.
Yeah, it's like one against the other, which is just manifested in our outside world of one country against another country, one religion against another religion, blah, 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 blah. So when we come back into that wholeness of what you're talking about, how can we support within ourselves? Well, if it reminds me of another crazy ass dream that I had. I went through a portal. And when I stepped through the portal, there was this beach, and then there was these stars in the sky that turned into fish, and they started to fall into the ocean. And I'm like, oh my God, we're in a story within a story. That's interesting. And I went through the portal with a male friend of mine, and he lied down on the beach, and he's like, I'm going back to Earth, I'm going back to this reality. And I went to lie on top of him, and I said, okay, that's fine, but you have to let me lead now. And he's like, why? And I said, because I have the imagination, because it's the only way we can break through that duality game, is to bring through our imagination, start to bring through the lineage of our soul and what it's been through. It has so much wisdom there. And then it's not like everything that you imagine you're going to be able to create, but you want to be able to ground the things that actually resonate with you, feel really good. Wouldn't it be awesome to do that? That sort of thing, I'm passionate about that sort of thing. Then learn to ground that. Well, the only way to do that is to get the support, the masculine support of that feminine imagination. So when the masculine goes, yeah, I agree with that, boom, we're going to be able to create it easily in this world. But it's when we go, I've got a fanciful idea over here that we can create this amazing cool house. And then the logical mind goes, well, low shit, you should be just doing square boxes like everybody else and fit in with the world and all that stuff. Then nah, we're stuck in the loop again. So yeah, that duality has to come together. That'll open up the pineal gland. Oh my God, the messages I got about the pineal gland were crazy.
Yeah.
Whole other story there. I mean, we could go on for hours, honestly, and it's probably.
Oh yeah, and I want to take a moment because I feel like this is a good point to, as we're talking about this. You have a book. Would you like to share and promote the book a little bit?
Well, actually, my book aside, because that was from years ago, I have two children's books. But I did start up with these master classes recently in the last few months, and I saw quite a few, so I was really excited. And that was all to do with learning to control one's mind into telepathy or channeling. And take your own sovereign power back. So they're actually just closed. So I did 2 lots of those, but I might reopen them next year. So I thought I'd say that. So that's Mind to Telepathy master classes, and you'll find the links on my website. And I'm also thinking of branching out with my YouTube to another channel where I want to create a school, a higher frequency school where we're taught how to be more telepathic and have all these cool games and things like that. So that's what I'm going to work on in the next few weeks, actually. I don't know exactly what it's going to be called. So if you go on to my YouTube channel, Bobbie the Messenger, then you'll find out about that more. I do lives weekly. I also pull some tarot cards for people for fun because I really enjoy doing that and I want to do what I enjoy doing. And I also have past life video. I have so many videos, portal videos that go into Pleiades, takes you for a journey through Pleiades, Arcturians, future air, elementals. I've done all these amazing videos. So yeah, if you want to go check out my channel, Bobbie the Messenger, you'll find all of those. And my website is codes-to-a-new-reality.com. So that has everything on it as well as more channel messages. Yeah.
Which you all will be happy to know are all in the description.
Yay!
So thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show. And a question that I'd ask at the end that I've been getting a lot of feedback that people are really loving when I ask this, and they all get excited to hear what the answer is. From your life experiences, whether current, past, however you want to look at it, wherever, what is a golden nugget that you would like to leave the audience with?
I suppose the golden nugget from me would be that you have the capability within yourself and your mind to control that and open yourself up to a lot more understanding of who you are once you start to find that calmness within yourself. Don't be afraid of your emotions. Emotions are a gauge so that you can actually open more. Yeah, so there's, I don't know, a nugget. As soon as you said a nugget, I remember the gold bracelet that I dug up. But yeah, there's a lot more to humanity's potential. Let's put it that way. We are incredible beings. And because we have this incredible imagination that can hold so many different vast areas in lifetimes ago, their soul's gone on. There's so much that we can work, move into this world and change this world up. We've got to stop being afraid of the fear game. The fear game is just pulling us into their vortex anyway. There is actually nothing to be afraid of other than your own self being afraid. So yeah, I'll leave it at that.
No, I love that because one of my favorite lines from a movie comes from Dune, where he's sticking his hand in this box, and his mantra is, "I cannot fear. Fear is the mind killer."
Yeah, it is. It is. It
Yeah,
stops you. It limits you for everything. Yeah.
yeah. So thank you again for coming on, and thank you to everyone in the chat room and everyone who's watching and will watch. And so thank you so much. And as often, make it a wonderful day, evening, afternoon, or sweet dreams if you're asleep. And, feel free to watch this when you wake up. I don't mind subliminally putting that out there for you. But all kidding aside, make every day a wonderful, beautiful experience. And as Bobbie put it, open yourself up to your true human potential. Don't let yourself be limited by what you feel is expected or required. Just let it go and find your oneness within, and empower yourself and reach for that potential and see where you go. That's what's needed in our world is. And with that, we are going to say good night, everyone.
Thanks, Michael.
Thank you.